Welcome to our Thursday Sports Insider. I'm your host, Bud Shaw. I'm filling in for Dan Labby and Chris Fedor today, who are both on double secret special assignment. We're going to be talking Cavs, Indians, and Browns in exactly that order. We're going to go right now to Chris Haynes, who's in New York, where the Cavs play Brooklyn tonight, and I believe the Knicks on Saturday. Chris, how are you?
But I'm doing fine, but I need to ask you, how are you? Because you definitely have huge shoes to fill this morning. I don't know how you're going to manage.
Yeah, it's like trying to be the face of the franchise during those 4 years when LeBron was gone. It's quite a challenge. Listen, Chris, we had a story online today by Joe Varden talking about how the Tyronn Lue and David Griffin have spoken to LeBron James about his recent behavior. What do you make of that? And in your opinion, was that necessary? Should that have happened?
Oh, no doubt. And that was good reporting of Varden to get that and to get Tyronn Lue on record admitting that. But yeah, I mean, I wrote about it after that Miami game about how it just didn't look good with LeBron at halftime with the team down 21, going over there fraternizing, laughing, smiling, chopping it up with Dwayne Wade. It didn't send the right message. And if Tyronn Lue and David Griffin, if they addressed him about that and said those things, then yes, you have to give him kudos because you have to hold him accountable. And I understand he's the best player, on the team. I understand he's already the best player in the league, but there's still a responsibility that you must have as a leader. You can't get away with everything and do anything that you want and expect not to be approached or called on it. So them doing that definitely shows that, hey, they're keeping order. And I think it's something that probably wouldn't have happened if David Blatt was still at the helm. So you got to give him props for that.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask next, Chris. A lot of people look at the play of the team and they say they don't see a big difference between Lue and when Blatt was here. Do you see a difference in the relationship between the head coach and the star player?
Well, just simple as that. Tyronn Lue approaching Bron and saying that, hey, man, I didn't like that as a competitor. That didn't send the right message. And then it's one thing to do it behind the scenes, but then you come out and say it on record that yes, I did get on LeBron. I did criticize him. So now it's out there for people to see. Like David Blatt, I don't even think David Blatt would have approached LeBron behind the scenes, and I know for sure he wouldn't have came out on record and said he did it. So, no, I think that it's a big difference in that regard. Now, you're looking at the standings and record-wise, you say it's probably not much of a difference, but I think just from the accountability standpoint, I think we can see, I think we can see right now, what that is.
Chris, one more LeBron question, and we'll move on to the actual play of this team. The comments that were made about, and I know it was, I believe, a dated interview from a couple weeks back at least, about wanting at some point to play with Carmelo and Dwayne Wade and Chris Paul. What did you make of those? And should that have been something that he just disavowed when it was brought up to him, sort of the way Dwayne Wade did in Miami, saying, all I care about are my teammates right now that I'm playing with?
Yeah, I think that would have been the right way to do it, to go about it. To be fair to LeBron, I don't know the mood of that interview that he had with Howard Beck. It was in February. It might have been a lighthearted conversation on record, but it still might have been a lighthearted conversation. I find I was going to say, I find it hard to believe that if you ask LeBron those same questions at this stage, like with all this going on now with the Cavs, that he would have answered it like that today. But this is LeBron. I don't, this guy, he goes off with a drip. He's his own person. I'll just say that. But, the interview was from a couple months ago. It's just bad timing for those quotes to come out right now. And then even still last night, he was asked about it again, and, he still said, yeah, I mean, he downplayed it a little bit, saying he doesn't know how realistic that is, but yes, he would like to play with those guys. So, I don't know. I just think, I think the team, matter of fact, I know the team would just like for him to tone down his antics and do some things. And Joe mentioned it in the story. Maybe that's the reason why he's been active, the way he has over the last couple of days. He's been quiet, it's been a bad mood. Maybe it was because Lou and David Griffin approached him. So, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, looking at this team on the court, Chris, are we seeing a new commitment to defense these last few games, or are we seeing a change in tactics that are meant to improve these guys defensively heading into the playoffs?
Well, your defense definitely helps when you're playing inferior teams.
Sure.
So I don't want to make too big of a defensive improvement. It has been an emphasis on defense. Tyronn Lue has been preaching it. The guys out there, you could definitely see they're making a concerted effort. But I need to see more consistency, and I need to see it from some top-level teams, and we're just not going to really get to see that during the rest of these 11 games. With that being said, I do think they're playing well offensively. I think you see the ball moving on that end, that ball is just zipping from left to right, and I think that's how this team needs to play. So, we'll see. Like I said, bud, I know I spoke to you last week about this, man. This team is bored. They're bored, and they're looking for any type of momentum to try to get perked up or kind of get riled up because, they want to get to the postseason. That's the simple fact of the matter is. They're not going to say it on record. Kevin Love said it on record a little bit, but anybody else, they're not going to say, we're bored. But that's a simple fact. So they're just trying to find any type of fight within these games or any type of slice to try to get themselves up for these last 11 games.
All right, well, we're going to ask one more quick question of you, and we'll let you go. When you look at this team, now we're almost at the point where there's only 10 games left in the regular season. What do you need to see? You're seeing some players who are clearly getting ready for the playoffs, and I would probably put Tristan Thompson at the top of that class. But what are you looking for in these next 10 games? Just
a commitment to effort. A commitment to effort. Just staying the course. And they're gonna have some bad shooting nights. They're gonna have some bad defensive slip-ups from here and there. But there's been a lot of times, man, where just the lack of effort was not there. So I need to see them playing hard, like really playing like this is a postseason play. And because this is something, players like to always say, especially this team, we'll turn it on when we get there. We'll turn it on. Well, a lot of times it's hard to do that, because you got other teams that play like it's their last every single game. So I just want to see them play with some effort.
All right, Chris, thanks again. We'll let you get back to work.
Bud, you take care, my guy.
All right. That was Chris Haynes. You heard him talk about the LeBron James comments that were made and his behavior down in Miami that Joe Vardon wrote about today that was addressed by Lou and Griffin both. I think that's a pretty positive sign. The thing that I find most curious about these last couple days is even if that interview that he did in which he talked about wanting to play with Carmelo and Dwayne Wade and those guys, even if that happened back in February, the elephant in the room whenever that kind of discussion is held is, well, where would this happen? And if it's not going to happen in Cleveland, that puts, that makes everybody panic just a little bit. So we'll see where that all goes. Next up, Paul Hoynes, are you with us?
Hey, Bud, how you doing?
All right, pal, how are you?
Good, man.
Paul, you have a slideshow online today and kind of projecting the roster for opening day. Was there any one of those that you particularly struggled with?
Yeah, I think there was a couple, but I thought the fifth starter between Josh Tomlin and Cody Anderson was kind of a tough call, and picking a lefty for the bullpen. Tom Gorzelani, I went with him over Joe Thatcher, who probably has had the best spring of any of the lefties. He's gotten everybody out. But I just from listening from Francona's comments, I thought that he was doing it more with smoke and mirrors, kind of a veteran, really working hard in spring training to make the team, to run the table. And I just went with Gorzelani more on a gut feel.
All right, Paul, looking at that fifth starter, I noticed that you mentioned that Terry Francona thinks that maybe Josh Tomlin feels too good. At my age, I know it's impossible to feel too good. What exactly does that mean, and why do you think Tomlin got that nod?
Well, I think just because, Tomlin had the right shoulder surgery last spring. He had Tommy John in 2012. And I think for the first time, he's probably pitching pain-free. He's not struggling to find a spot to throw from that doesn't hurt. And, Francona said that he's got an extra gear to his fastball a little bit. So he's kind of, he's always been a kind of a touch and feel guy, a guy that, really his average fastball is about 88 to 90. And he's got a little more pop on the fastball. So he's learned how to pitch with that. And I still think, when he gets out of the desert, where the humidity is very low, he'll come back to Cleveland. He'll be able to spin the ball a little better. I think that's going to help him, and that's what they're counting on. And I think that they want Cody Anderson to go to AAA, and he's kind of in the same boat. He's throwing 95 to 97 right now, and he doesn't really know where that ball is going all the time, and they want him to work on a curveball. So I think this is the best of both worlds for these two guys.
Paul, you've taught me a lot about baseball over the years. We don't have.
That must be another guy.
We only have 30 minutes to cover all that. But one of the things that we've talked about and that you've said occasionally is that you shouldn't believe or trust anything you see in March or September in September, meaning when the rosters expand. What do you make of Tyler Naquin, and what should this team do with this guy?
That's a great question, Bud, because I've been thinking about that myself. This guy's hitting 470. What's he hitting? He's hitting 447. He hit 2 home runs yesterday. The thing is, you can be deceived by the stats, and the wind is always blowing out in Arizona. The ball flies like crazy. There's a lot of pitchers just getting in shape and throwing first pitch fastballs and all that. And that plays right into a kid, a hungry guy like Naquin trying to make a ball club. But there's been there's nobody else on this roster that's played better. That's the thing. I mean, if someone would have stepped up like a Will Venable or a Rajah Davis or Robbie Grossman or Shane Robinson, and of course Almonte gets popped with the suspension. They need a center fielder, and this guy's the best center fielder they have right now.
Well, Paul, there was a report recently, and sorry I don't remember where it came from, that said that they're still not really happy with their outfield alternatives. How likely is it that they're going to be able to make an addition there, and do you think that they need to make one?
Well, I think I think when they brought Marlon Byrd in, when they signed him to that minor league deal, I think that was a pretty good. That was probably their last best shot at improving the offense. Or the outfield. And I think this is a guy that's got like 10 days to prove that he can start. He can be part of their starting outfield. Or not part of the outfield, not the starting outfield, but so I think that's their best shot right there. That was their last gasp, unless they make a deal of some kind. I think right now, if everything goes according to plan, Brantley will start opening day, but he's been set back a couple of days with the shoulder, so we don't know about that. So they very well could be looking for more outfield help, but I think that would be a big, big stretch to bring that in right now with, 10 days left before opening day, unless, they make a trade and they get a guy that's, been in camp since mid-February.
All right, Paul, real quick, just give me the name. Michael Brantley's on the roster. Who's the leadoff hitter?
Michael Brantley's on the roster. He's on the opening day roster. Jason Kipnis will hit leadoff.
Michael Brantley is not on the roster on opening day. Who's the leadoff hitter?
Francisco Lindor.
All right. Thanks again, Paul. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, bud.
Listen, that's the way I would go with Lindor also. I know that they're concerned. This is a conservative organization. They don't like to put too much on young players' plates too soon. This guy, we saw last year that he came up, had 103 at-bats where he struggled, and then we saw him turn it around and play like an all-star. I don't think it would be asking too much of this particular guy to step up and lead off if he had to. The other option, obviously, Paul just mentioned, was Kipnis, and I'm fine with that too. What I never understood was having Carlos Santana possibly at the top of the order, and I think they've probably given up on that idea too. All right, we're going to switch gears and get to the Browns right now and welcome in Mary Kay Cabot. Hi, Mary Kay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thanks.
Hey, what's on your agenda today? We know that there's a pro day workout for Carlos. Yeah, I was going to call him Carlos Wentz for some reason. Yeah, we know that pro day is happening out there. That's where Hugh Jackson is, I assume?
Yeah, Hugh Jackson made it there. He was the only NFL head coach that did make it there because of the blizzard that hit the upper Midwest in Denver. So he's the only head coach that made it. The workout went really well. The scripted portion, 65 throws, were absolutely phenomenal until Pat Hamilton wet the ball like he did for Jared Goff, and then he skipped the first one into the dirt. So that was not a good look for him after a really great workout, and I think that unfortunately that's probably what people are going to end up focusing on. But it was really a tremendous workout if you, if you don't really, focus too much on that. And I know you have to because of the weather here in Cleveland, but like Carson Wentz said on TV on NFL Network, he just said, he really doused the ball. I mean, he said it would have had to be a torrential downpour, but sometimes those do happen. So, it's a factor, but I wouldn't let it be a deal breaker for sure.
When you look at what Hugh Jackson has said and what they've done as an organization quarterback-wise, do you think they could be holding off on signing RG3 until after seeing Wentz in this workout, or do you think those are two totally unrelated situations?
I think those are two unrelated situations. I'm not exactly sure what the holdup is right now. I don't know if another team has gotten involved. I don't know if RG3 is maybe having some perhaps reservations about some of the things that have been going on in Cleveland, and what's going to be the outlook when they draft a quarterback and those kind of things. But obviously there's something holding it up a little bit. I don't know exactly what that is. Sashi Brown, I know his wife had a baby 2 days ago, so he had to fly home from the NFL owners meetings. I don't know if that's factoring into this at all, but for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet, and I thought it could have happened as soon as yesterday.
Do you think what they do, in your opinion, signing RG3, does it affect what they do in drafting a quarterback?
Well, it shouldn't, and I don't think it will. I mean, I think it's great to take a chance on RG3 and see how that works out for you, and do some kind of an incentive-laden contract just to be able to get him in here and see what he can do. But you have to pretend that he's not here and you don't have him. You have to plan for the future. You don't know what he's going to be, and I would proceed. I would draft either Carson Wentz or Jared Goff. For some reason, I went to the Senior Bowl, and I've just been on the Carson Wentz bandwagon since then. I just watched him practice for 3 days, and I just really liked what I saw there. And I know a lot of people, I think including you, Bud, are Goff people. Yep. And a ton of people are Goff people. But for some reason right now I'm in the Wentz camp, and I just can't seem to shake it.
Well, the obvious question is the one I just asked, how would signing RG3 impact what they do in the draft quarterback-wise? But if we spin it back, how would signing RG3 affect Josh McCown?
Well, that would have an impact. I think that they would try to trade him, or he would ask to be released so he could go catch on with another team. Something would happen. They're not going to have RG3, Josh McCown, Austin Davis, and then a draft pick on the roster. So he would probably move in one way or the other.
So if they sign RG3, is it an indication that they don't really believe much in the value of mentoring a young quarterback? Or that they don't believe the veteran quarterback has to be the one to do it?
They don't believe a veteran quarterback has to be the guy to do that. I think they believe that with the coaching staff that they have, with the way that Hugh Jackson himself is with quarterbacks and how they respond to him, that they wouldn't need the quarterback to play the other quarterback, the veteran, to play that role. So, it's a nice thing to have, but for them, not a deal breaker at all.
You have a slideshow online right now, the 5 pressing questions about RG3. In your mind, which of those is the most? Does one stand out? Is one more pressing than another?
Yes, it's can he play? That.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah, can he still play? And if he can, how would he play? Would he be a read option guy? And if you do that, even talking to Bruce Arians yesterday, he was like, well, you know what? If you're going to expose him like that to injury, then, he's not going to be on the field because sooner or later he's going to get hurt running that kind of an offense. When he tries to run the other kind of an offense, more conventional pocket passer type of guy, he struggles with some things. Supposedly, doesn't get the ball out quick enough, doesn't slide, doesn't slide, when he's supposed to, doesn't necessarily call the protections the right way all the time, waits for receivers to be too open. So, so there are some issues, but Hugh Jackson feels as though he can fix a lot of those issues. He feels like he can harness that talent and get RG3 back to playing good ball. But the other factor is you have to have a good supporting cast. And, right now you really have to question what that supporting cast is going to be like.
If Josh Gordon manages to prove to the league or to Roger Goodell that he's deserving of reinstatement, are his proving days over, or does he have to prove to Hugh Jackson, Sashi Brown, and everybody else in the organization that he can be a guy that they can trust?
Well, he definitely has to prove it to them, too. They don't know him for the most part. Hugh Jackson doesn't know him. All he knows is that he's been suspended for 27 of the last 32 games, and it seems as though every time he comes back, he's, going to turn over a new leaf, and then it happens again. So those are the only things that they know about him. And, yes, he would still have to prove it. But, I've just gotten such a weird vibe about the whole thing. At the Combine, it just seemed so positive. It was going all in the right direction. And now, the Browns don't seem to be counting on him. They don't like to talk about him very much. And, Roger Goodell, I actually caught up with him for a minute after the press conference yesterday and, asked him point blank, will you meet with him? Do you have to meet with him before you let him back in? And he was like, well, you know what? I might have to. I might choose to. So that tells me that they're not even sure if he's at that point where Roger would step in and be ready to make this decision.
All right. Thank you, Mary Kay Cabot. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Bud.
Well, that kind of segues right into a comment that I wanted to leave you with today on the Browns and Hugh Jackson. Browns fans are being asked to put a lot of trust in Jackson when it comes to selecting the next quarterback. And we've done this before, and I've been as guilty of it as anyone. You look at the quarterback credentials of the people in Berea making the decisions, and you determine that they probably know what they're doing. Not only that, but we tend to project their expertise on the quality of the quarterback they pick. For instance, Mike Holmgren's regime, he was a guru, right? Drafted Brandon Weeden. We thought that was going to be good because Holmgren had also coached Brett Favre. So Weeden must be the right pick. Well, that didn't exactly work out. So let's hold off on this and this kind of thinking until we see what Hugh Jackson really does. So far, we're just hearing him talk up everybody. We're told that he loved Colin Kaepernick when Kaepernick was coming into the league and Hugh Jackson was in Oakland. And now we hear him call Robert Griffin III a tremendous talent. The same RG3 who played behind not only Kirk Cousins, but also Colt McCoy last year. Our first commenter makes the point that RG3 was a tremendous talent before injury, before he was asked to actually pass from the pocket instead of take off and run. Jackson seems to be exploring options quarterback-wise, and that's smart. It'll be smarter if he doesn't let an RG3 signing change what is best for this organization, and that's drafting a top quarterback and developing him. Our second commenter talks about the so-called Browns line, offensive line, and how RG3 would have to run for his life behind it. Well, listen, that's going to be true of any quarterback until they fill the holes that they've created. The answer isn't not to draft a quarterback because of that or sign one because of that. It's to improve the line. It's understandable if Browns fans by now have their guard up against all this chatter and just want to see results. So Washington head coach Jay Gruden says RG3 would be a good fit in Cleveland. So what, our final commenter says. Why even report this? He says he couldn't play in Washington, but he'd be a good fit for Hugh Jackson? How stupid. Listen, would RG3 add talent to the quarterback depth chart? Absolutely, sure he would. Would it be smart to give him the starting job? Absolutely not. But until we see what Hugh Jackson really thinks, and that won't happen until he puts a team on the field in training camp and then for the regular season, the only thing we can say for sure is that if this team doesn't draft and develop a talented young quarterback, commit to him, develop him, put weapons around him to support him, we'll be having this discussion year after year. Someone, anyone, please save us from that. Well, that's my spin for today. I want to thank Mary Kay Cabot, Chris Haynes, and Paul Hoynes for joining us. This has been the Sports Insider. I also want to thank Dan Labby and Chris Fedor for going on special assignment and giving me this chance to host.